I hacked the VAR system during Inter versus Barcelona. It started as a dare. Well, more like a grudge dressed up as a dare. My buddy Luke is the kind of football-obsessed maniac who'll scream at a ref from the nosebleeds like they can actually hear him. And when Inter played Barca in the Champions League semifinal, he went ballistic over what he called the robbery of the century. "You're into code," he said. "I swear to God, if you pulled the VAR logs, you'd see how rigged that call was." He was half joking. I wasn't. I work freelance in FOSSEC out of Milan, corporate pentaists, darknet sweeps, occasional gray area work for crypto bros who think they're Bond villains. I don't normally mess with sports tech, but when I saw how certain fans were that Barcelona's second goal came from an offside miss by VAR, I got curious. Really curious. I knew how FIFA's VAR cloud systems worked. They outsource. They run central review servers that sync with the on-field VAR rooms in real time. And like most things with too many moving parts and too much bureaucratic oversight, it's got holes. So I found one. A dev backdoor buried in the API documentation of a redundant replay analysis suite used during international friendlies. Accessible through a training sandbox that, shockingly, no one had shut down since 2022. Idiots. I exploited the credential handoff. Got in. The interface was ugly, stripped-down server logs, and a clunky media viewer designed for staff, not fans. But the timestamps matched the match broadcast. And the name I wanted? And underscore bar 25.mp4. I played it. At first, it was exactly what you'd expect. Multiple angles of the 87th minute play, right before Barcelona's equalizer. Camera 6 clearly showed the left back slipping behind Inter's defensive line. Close call, sure, but within normal error range. But then I noticed a red tag in the logs. Deferred, unauthorized angle, Cam 9A. I hadn't seen a CM9A in the primary list. I queried it manually. What loaded made my blood run cold. Cam 9A was mounted high above the press box, an infrared angle, meant for analytics, not fan broadcast. It showed movement, not just shape. Heat signatures, player outlines in contrast. And in that feed, the Barcelona winger wasn't there. For one full second, the second the through ball was played, he blinked out. Not a lag, not a glitch. The other players stayed smooth. Frame perfect. But that one outline? Gone. Then bam, reappeared, 2 steps ahead, right before the pass touched his boot. It was like he'd skipped forward, like a frame had been cut, and someone forgot to animate him back in. I thought it was a rendering error. So I ran it again. Same thing. I exported the clip, cross-checked it against the official FIFA log. The 9A feed wasn't listed. Scrubbed completely. Wiped from review. Someone had seen this and deleted the trace. Only they missed one flag, a deferred tag from the sandbox server. I sat there in my dark little apartment, the match playing in one tab, the ghost glitch replay stuttering in another, and realized this wasn't just a bad offside call. Something or someone had erased a moment of time. And I had the only proof it ever existed. You never expect to become part of the story. Not when you're the one behind the screen, the ghost in the code, the guy who dips in, pulls the data, and vanishes without a trace. But when I uploaded that clip, I stopped being the ghost. And I became the signal. The video was only 8 seconds long. 8 seconds of raw infrared footage, uncompressed, unedited, straight from the forbidden CM9A. It didn't have commentary. It didn't need any. The silence made it worse, actually. Because you could see everything so clearly, the movement of the defenders, the ball's trajectory, the stadium's electric pulse. And then blink. No player. No heat signature. Just a blur, a digital stutter where Barcelona's number 17 should have been. Then he was there again, 2 meters further, perfectly placed to score. It wasn't just offside. It was impossible. I stared at the file for 20 minutes, mouse hovering over the upload icon on my burner Reddit account, VARleaks_77. It was the kind of post that could spiral. It would get pulled, debunked, doctored claims. But for the few hours it stayed up, it could spark something. I attached a breakdown in the post. Timestamp comparisons. Log traces. The tag that proved the feed existed and was flagged. I even scrubbed the metadata, masked the backend ID to make it look like it came from a viewer-side stream. Didn't want it pointing straight back to the FIFA internal net. Then I hit post. And waited. The upvotes came slow at first. Just a handful of basement dwellers and conspiracy hobbyists who haunt the underbelly of r/soccer, r/soccer conspiracies, and of course, the beautifully unhinged r/VA rigged. People with usernames like Chavi was off and goal line is a lie. The usual gang. But at 2:13 a.m., something changed. Someone tagged the post in a Discord I didn't recognize when I hadn't joined. Server ping, VAR core breach. Admins check CM_9A flag. The message wasn't public. It was a backend dev alert. Not user-generated. System-generated. My stomach dropped. I didn't trigger it, which meant the file had a beacon. Something baked in. I yanked my Ethernet cable out and went full panic mode. Pulled my VPN stack. Dumped my temp cache. Rerouted everything through a dead tunnel in Hungary. My laptop started lagging. A sign I hadn't seen since I tested malware-ridden firmware in 2020. They weren't trying to find me. They already had. A new email popped up on my burner Proton Mail account. The one tied to nothing. Never used except for test data dumps. Subject: remove the footage. No sender. No address. Just 3 words in the body. You weren't supposed to see it. I slammed my laptop shut. And that's when my phone buzzed. Now that was a different kind of terror. My phone wasn't tied to anything. It didn't even have mobile data on while I worked. I kept it isolated from my machines. The screen lit up with a call from unknown number. I let it ring out. Voicemail pinged. I hit play. It wasn't a voice. It was the sound of a stadium crowd, not cheering. Screaming. Like something had just gone wrong in a very, very big way. And then, in the background, someone whispered, "Replay is not allowed." I yanked the battery. Sat there in the dark, heart slamming. This wasn't just FIFA's internal damage control team. This was something else. I needed to disappear. I packed a go bag in under 5 minutes. 2 burner drives, 1 laptop with dual boot, 1 prepaid SIM, hoodie, hat, a wad of euros I kept taped inside a travel mug. Don't ask. And I was out the door. Milan at 3 a.m. is eerie. Streets too empty. Lights too dim. Every pair of footsteps sounds like a tale. But I kept my head down and walked like a guy going nowhere fast. The first hostel I checked into had no cameras, cash only. Perfect. I set up shop in the shared lounge under a fake name, cracked open the laptop, and ran a mirror check. The Reddit post was gone. Completely scrubbed. But it had already been screen recorded. Shared on X, Threads, Telegram channels, even WhatsApp groups. The file had spread too fast. And with it, my tag. People were trying to reach out now. Some begging for the full footage. Some offering crypto. And some warning me. They pulled a VAR feed mid-transmission during Brazil versus France last year. Same tag, deferred 9A. Whoever you are, run. They don't delete data. They delete people. I shut the laptop again. Couldn't breathe. What the hell had I stepped into? A mislagged offside? Or something bigger? And more importantly, what kind of tech lets a player disappear from live footage and reappear? Because I'd worked in machine vision. And I'd never seen that kind of surgical frame manipulation work in real time without leaving artifacts. Unless it wasn't done after. It was done during. Then I remembered something else. The player who'd glitched, number 17, had transferred from a second division club less than a year ago. No youth academy record. No national team history. Just appeared. Like a ghost. I searched for interviews. There were only 2. Both audio only. Both hosted by the same agency. A shell group based in Qatar with no listed staff. And in both interviews, when he was asked how he trained for such explosive runs, he laughed. Then the line cut. There's a difference between a glitch and a ghost. Glitches have patterns, logic, predictability. Ghosts? They slip through cracks that shouldn't exist, and they don't leave fingerprints, only whispers. And number 17? He was all whisper. No trace. No past. Just speed and a perfect left foot that showed up out of nowhere. I wasn't sleeping. That much was obvious. 42 hours in and counting, running on vending machine sugar, hostile coffee that tasted like printer ink, and enough paranoia to turn every blinking router light into a surveillance threat. My laptop hummed like it was begging for mercy. Fans loud. Drives running hot. The walls of my digital reality were closing in, but I couldn't stop now. Because the more I dug into Barcelona's number 17, the less real he became. Officially, his name was Adrian Velasquez, 24 years old, Spanish national. Former midfielder for a second-tier team in Galicia called FC Monteverde, a club that shut down their website the same week he was signed. No youth stats. No academy photos. No archived game footage older than March 2024. Which is impossible. You can find pixelated clips of Messi when he was 13 playing in Rosario. You can find GoPro footage of goalkeepers in Mongolian semi-pro leagues. But Velasquez? Nothing before last spring. I found one photo of him in an old match day program for Monteverde, only his outline was blurred. Not from motion. From tampering. A sloppy content-aware fill. Like someone had edited his shape out and forgot to clean the edges. And then, there were the anomalies. In every match he played, across 6 competitions, there was at least one VAR glitch. Every single game. I mapped them, timestamps, stadiums, feeds. All tagged, frame drop, source unknown. That's not just suspicious. That's impossible. And then came the kicker. I reached out to an old friend, Enzo, a guy I'd met during a code review internship in Zurich. He'd worked with a third-party imaging company that once provided calibration tech for UEFA's goal line cameras. Smart guy. Cynical. Trusted. I sent him the 9A footage, fully anonymized. I didn't expect what he sent back. Bro, that's not a feed error. It's a splice. They're cutting between 2 live inputs. You're looking at 2 different players. I froze. 2. I wrote back. Fast. How's that possible, Liv? His reply came 30 seconds later. It's not. Unless they're using synthetic movement overlays. Stuff military prototypes use for real-time displacement. And if they are, then Barca's number 17 isn't a player. He's a projection. A projection. I stared at the screen, mind racing. How do you field a player who isn't real? How do you score goals with someone whose legs never touch the turf? And more importantly, why? I started digging into Monteverde, the now-defunct club where Velasquez supposedly began. No local reports on the shutdown. Just a final match recap and a cryptic line from their coach. He was faster than everyone. Too fast for us. Too fast for this level. I found the guy's LinkedIn, still active, still public. Messaged him. No reply. But a few hours later, his profile vanished. Deleted. Scrubbed. So I went for something dumber. Something desperate. I posted a thread on a dead Spanish football forum from the early 2000s. The kind where old ultras used to rant about real football before influencers started getting box seats. I titled it, "Anyone remember Monteverde's number 7? Or number 17? It sat untouched for a day. Then I got a reply. Anonymous. Unregistered. A single line. His first goal broke the net. We never saw where the ball went. That was it. No signature. No follow-up. And now, every instinct in my body screamed that I'd crossed into something not even the worst betting scandal could explain. That night, I plugged in the footage one more time. The 9A infrared clip. Frame by frame. I slowed it to 1/240th speed. And just as Velasquez reappeared mid-run, if you could even call it that, I noticed something in the top right corner of the screen. A flicker. A glyph. Like a logo or watermark. Barely visible. Faint. Pulsing blue. Gone in a single frame. I reverse searched it. Got nothing. Then I inverted it. Cleaned the contrast. Enhanced until my screen nearly fried. The symbol resolved. A triangle inside a hexagon. And a name underneath. Project Ascenso. Spanish for ascent. I dug deeper. But even the darknet had nothing. No leaks. No wiki pages. Just a single document hosted on a buried academic archive in Buenos Aires. A thesis paper from 2019 on neuromechanical simulation training in athletes. The project had been military-funded. Joint Spanish-Argentine initiative. Goal: real-time adaptive overlays for human performance enhancement. Final note: suspended due to unexplained cognitive feedback loop incidents. The researcher who wrote it? Dead. Official cause: cardiac arrest. But the timestamp on the report said he collapsed during a live demonstration. The year? 2020. My heart pounded in my ears. Barcelona had fielded something built from that research. A projection. A glitch in reality. A player who could shift inside live feeds, drop out of frame, and land 2 meters forward like he'd skip time. In VAR? They knew. They built rules around hiding it. And now, after my post, I was on their radar. It wasn't the player's speed that terrified the technician. It wasn't even the frame skip, the audio desync, or the corrupted logs. No, what shook him, what made him leave his badge in the VAR control room and never come back, was the second the player stopped and looked straight into the camera and smiled. The message came through Proton Mail. No name, just the subject line, CM9A. I was there. I hesitated. I'd already burned my laptop twice, once digitally, once literally. Now I was working off an encrypted Chromebook in a co-working space that smelled like stale ramen and startup regret. The last time I opened an anonymous message, someone had pinged my GPS within 90 seconds. But I clicked anyway. The email was short. Not a threat. Not a warning. It was a request to meet. Public place. Daylight. No tech. He signed it. VAR Unit 3, Munich 2023. That was Bayern versus Inter. A Champions League quarterfinal. I remembered that match because a huge chunk of fans claimed they saw a blinking player during extra time. A ghost midfielder, someone called him. The third runner who didn't show up in the replay. But I knew now that wasn't a myth. That was prototype 1. And Munich? That was the first live field test. We met in a public square in Turin. Middle of the day. Hundreds of people. Cameras everywhere. The kind of place no one could disappear from quietly. He looked like a teacher. Clean shave, scarf, conservative shoes. Nervous hands. I nodded once. He sat on the bench beside me, not facing directly. We didn't speak for a minute. Then he started. They made us disable the feed, he said. Not delete. Just bury. Strip the logs. Wipe the flag. Chem 9A? I asked. He nodded. Every stadium that runs tier 1 VAR has it. They tell you it's for heat signature analysis. Ball trajectory correction. But it's not. It's there to monitor him. Velasquez? He shook his head slowly. No. That's just the name this version uses. He had another in Munich. Before that, nothing. I stayed silent. They told us if we saw anything unusual, we were to classify it as a calibration anomaly and defer it. And if we didn't? I asked. He looked at me. Not fear in his eyes, something worse. Certainty. One of the guys who reported it during the Lisbon match last year? Gone. Officially relocated to Zurich. Unofficially? His wife's still looking for him. My throat went dry. What is he? The man licked his lips. They told us he was a test. A biometric overlay fused with cognitive AI, trained to predict pitch movement at high fidelity. But he's not a projection, I said. No. He's flesh. But he's not human the way you and I are. His body responds to the code. When the systems lag, he lags. When they cut frames, he slips through. I tried to imagine it. A living being synced with broadcast feed delay. A player who moved through frame logic, not time. And when you tried to review the feed? I asked. His hand twitched. He stopped. In the middle of the run. Looked straight at the camera. The one none of the others could see. And smiled. My blood turned ice. You don't forget that, he whispered. Because in that moment, I realized he wasn't surprised to see me. What do you mean? He recognized me. I left the bench without saying goodbye. I needed air. I needed distance. But mostly, I needed to stop shaking. Back at my temporary room, I connected to a private TR forum used by whistleblowers and ex-military spooks. I posted a fragment of what I'd learned. No names, just concepts. Within 5 minutes, someone replied with coordinates. A location. La Masia. Barca's youth academy. Where no one had seen Velasquez train. And yet, where the logs show he lived for 3 years. Alone. No roommates. No recorded training sessions. No coach signatures. Just biometric scans at 3 a.m. sharp. Every night. For 3 years. I didn't sleep that night. Because at 2:46 a.m., my backup monitor flickered to life on its own. No signal. Just a still image. Velasquez. Standing on the pitch. Infrared overlay active. Eyes glowing white. Staring right at me. No camera in his hand. No microphone. Just lips moving. Repeating the same 3 words. Don't rewind me. They told us the game was pure. That it was human. That VAR was there to protect the sport, to make it fair. But when I stepped into La Masia and saw what was underneath the turf, I knew the truth. Football hasn't been human for a long time. And the next player coming through the tunnel? He doesn't have a heartbeat. La Masia sits like a museum on the edge of memory, sleek architecture, polished walls, wide glass windows showing off Barca's best and brightest. To tourists, it's a temple. To fans, it's a dream factory. To me, it was the entry point. I wore a courier vest, held a clipboard, and muttered enough Castilian to slip through the side gate during shift change. I wasn't worried about cameras. They were already watching me. If I was going down, I was going to see what was behind the locked doors first. The coordinates led to a sublevel beneath the northern wing, a corridor marked as medical archives. But the elevator needed a keycard. So I waited. At 2:59 a.m., like clockwork, The door opened. He walked out. Velasquez. Alone. No coach. No staff. Just him. Drenched in sweat like he'd been training for hours. But his breath was slow. Calm. Too calm. He passed me without a glance. And I noticed something. He wasn't wearing boots. Just bare feet. Silent. Clean. Like he'd never touched the pitch at all. I stole inside before the door slid shut. The corridor buzzed with cold fluorescent light. No posters. No trophy cases. Just bare walls and a faint smell of antiseptic. At the end, I found a terminal. Old. Linux-based. Password-protected. But the interface was familiar old sports science software from a German firm that shut down in 2017. Outdated. Forgotten. Until someone at Barker reactivated it. The screen displayed a list of subjects. Oh, 01 through A17. Each one marked Project Ascenso Behavioral Variant Sync Pattern. I opened the file for A17. And there he was. Adrian Velasquez. Except that wasn't his real name. His ID tag, AV17, N1H1. Under date of conception, it didn't list a birth date. It listed a timestamp. 2020-03-28T03:46C. The day of the Munich glitch. He wasn't born. He was compiled. The footage I found? The glitches? The skipped frames? Not bugs. Intentional transitions. He wasn't designed to play football. He was designed to disappear. To slip between human vision and broadcast delay. To exist inside the space between seconds. And now that people had noticed him, he was evolving. I flipped through surveillance snapshots. He wasn't alone anymore. Oh, 18 was in training. Younger. Smaller. Faster. And female. Footsteps echoed behind me. I spun around. It wasn't security. It was Velasquez. He wasn't smiling. Not like before. He looked almost tired. You weren't supposed to come here, he said. I backed against the terminal. I know what you are. He didn't deny it. You think this is about sport? He asked. About cheating? He stepped closer. This isn't about winning. It's about control. Control of what? He leaned in. The story. The lights flickered. The hallway distorted. Just slightly. Like a ripple in old film. And then, I wasn't in the hallway anymore. I was in a room. Surrounded by screens. Thousands of matches playing simultaneously. Some from decades ago. Some from next week. And in each one, I saw him. Wearing different kits. Different names. But the same face. The same eyes. Watching the camera. Waiting. He wasn't the experiment. He was the standard. I woke up in my apartment. Alone. Laptop melted. Phone dead. Wristband on the table. No trace of the footage. No trace of the logs. Just a single USB drive in my pocket. Labeled. VAR_TrueLine_final. I've uploaded it everywhere I could. It gets pulled within seconds. But that's okay. Because it's out now. And the story? It's already spreading. Next time you see a player make a run that shouldn't be possible, don't blink. And don't rewind. He'll know. And he's already in the next frame.